Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am the other Skeptic. I introduced you to a horror anime last episode and was tragically cut short. But I'm here again in a reboot of sorts to continue the review. Welcome to part 2 of Higurashi no Naro Koro. Or When They Cry. So today we're going to look at 2 more chapters. Chapter 2, because it's the next chapter in the series, as well as Chapter 5. Now why would you do a darn thing like that? Because Chapter 5 is a sister chapter of sorts to Chapter 2 and parallels its story. A fair warning. I know I tend to review some grisly stuff on this channel, but the next 2 chapters are particularly cringeworthy. I mean, I try not to show too much in particular, but there you have it. So obvious observation out of the way, yes, the characters that died in the previous chapter are alive again. The reason being the month of June has a soft reboot for every chapter with slightly different details leading to different results, all of which are mostly gruesome. This is influenced by the visual novel aspect it originated from, where it's a choose-your-own-adventure kind of story where your choices determine characters' fates. So in this chapter, events proceed like normal. Keiichi is the new kid on the block, friends with Mion and Reina, and all the kids are in a club playing the punishment game, which I can no longer look at the same way. Keiichi wins a stereotypically cute yet creepy doll. He gives it to Reina because she loves cute things, remember? Though Mion shows a sign of hurt, but jokes about it after. Maybe you are. Those boobs look like pillows stuffed in your shirt. Perverted animators. But the new factor is when Keiichi finds Mion working at a specialty restaurant where waitresses wear suggestive dresses. Which is a real thing, by the way. Damn. But wait, that's not Mion, but her twin sister, Shion. Twins in horror, huh? What could possibly go wrong? With Shion as a new addition to the narrative, she's not shy from letting Keiichi know about the series of murders and the curse of Oyashiro-sama, which redirects his pathway of paranoia and suspecting his friends as culprits. You know, it's almost like these characters could use a healthy dose of communication. When the night of the Cotton Drifting Festival arrives, Shion urges him to follow her and meet up with Takano and Tamatake, remember those two? To break into a ritual tool shrine to research the dark history of the town. Which, considering how there's been 1 murder and 1 disappearance a year on the night of the festival for the past 4 years, with the superstition of the cause being due to the anger of the local guardian god, these characters are gonna tempt fate now, of all nights?
They're so stupid!
It's not long after when Keiichi learns that Tamataki and Takano were both found dead the next day, and Shion theorizes that 2 murders mean 2 disappearances. To which, since it was them who broke into the shrine, that means Keiichi and Shion will soon be spirited away. Wanting to know more, Keiichi talks to Rika, the cute little girl whose deceased parents were the priests of the shrine they broke into, and she gives off a demeanor like she knows more than she lets on, at least through the metaphors of cats. That night, Shion calls him about how she told the village leader about their trespassing and then he disappeared, which leads to the conclusion that whoever they tell will also be cursed, like an infection. This makes Keiichi scared he got Rika cursed, so he and Reina check on her. At her house, not only is she missing, but Sadako as well, 2 orphan girls whose folks died in previous years from the curse and yet have no guardians. Even though a doctor in the village wants to adopt them, I don't know why there's no regulation. But details. When Mion comes to help, Keiichi comments on how he's worried about Sadako, which, for some reason, makes her snap. As you can see, the plot's kind of all over the place, you know, he's cursed, she's cursed, you're cursed, everybody cursed, you know. Reina finds an empty soy sauce bottle, making her suspect that Rika went out for some, but to where? And when Keiichi tells Oichi about the village leader disappearing after Shion told him, he points out that the timing is off. And that would make Shion a suspect if it weren't for the fact that she's declared missing that day as well. But that still doesn't stop the fact that Keiichi receives a phone call from her that night. As you can well imagine that he's weirded out, he calls her out on the information he was given by Oishi.
だって、その先シオンは綿流しの翌日失踪したんだ。
A missing persons report helps Reina make the connection to Mion's place, where Keiichi and she confront her about all the disappearances, and with Oishi and the police close behind readying a warrant. In a bizarre scene, she speaks almost nonchalantly how she killed several people, including the village leader, Rika, Sadako, and imprisoned her sister Shion in an underground torture chamber. As useful as it is to have one of those around. She confesses, not only to the murders, but that she's also possessed by a demon, but also that her family is kind of descended from demons and some long, complicated history tied to the town's involvement with sacrifice. So, yeah. After all that, she's willing to come clean, but with only one request.
その前に30分でいいからケイちゃんと二人きりにしてほしい。
No. Keiichi trusts that his friend is still inside somewhere under the thumb of the demon's control, and so he says.
俺にとっての園崎美音は最高の親友だ。
So she replies.
私の罪のすべてを見てほしいから。
So he, of course, follows her like a lamb to the slaughter and finds Shion imprisoned.
無事だったんだな。
Look out! Mion is ready to torture Keiichi with nails to fingers, but somehow remains calm and stoic. Damn, dude. He even feels compassion for Mion and tells her to fight the demon inside of her. For that, Mion is touched. So she just tases him instead. It's almost like you shouldn't have left him with a psychopath for 30 minutes. He wakes up to find Shion was rescued and Mion fled, but she visits him that night.
おい、大丈夫かよ。無理するんだ。
So like a dumbass, he's in the hospital again with a slit in his gut. He then hears the news that Shion was found at the bottom of a well in the torture chamber, and Mion was found dead, fallen from the hotel window. Which leads to him wondering who the hell just visited him last night. Was it Mion, Shion, or someone else?
あの時一つ叶えてあげたけど、やっぱりダメ。
Well, that's a decent scare. Under the bed is always terrifying. I don't really care how old you are. I mean, you got Psycho Girl with blood and hammered nails and, you know, that ends with that ear-cringing splat. Ooh. Imagine, if you will, here I am sitting in bed late at night, and suddenly I look down at the end of my bed and I see... So what can we conclude? That Mion was possessed by a demon and going on a killing spree in disguise? Or maybe it was the effect of Oyashiro-sama's curse? Maybe. Or maybe not. But that's why we're going to take a look at the next chapter, because it does have an alternative perspective on the events that just occurred. So let's take a look. The next chapter is a story that is an alternate perspective of Chapter 2's events. We focus on Shion, who is the black sheep of her family, who are very traditional and powerful enough to be one of the 3 families that run the town. Not wanting twins to be the heir to the family estate, they send her away to a private school, which she escapes with the help of her uncle and bodyguard. She hides in Hinamizawa, posing as her sister Mion, with her consent, working a side job and just living life. And after being attacked by a biker gang, she's saved by a boy named Satoshi. Yes, that's Satoshi. And it's love at first sight. However, after his folks died from the curse in a previous cotton drifting festival, he and his sister Sadako are living in an abusive situation with their aunt and uncle. She desperately wants to help him, but when she sees Sadako is draining his energy by always crying out to him, she's not afraid to express her distaste. Jesus! Yeah, she goes from 0 to 100, beating on a small crying girl. Satoshi obviously doesn't respond well, but the strange thing is that he later apologizes to her for his behavior. Am I missing a page where they forgot her total psychotic breakdown? In fact, he wants to trust her with Sadako to go to that year's Cotton Drifting Festival because he has plans. Well, Mr. King, when you're going on about towns and their dark little secrets, you were right. So after killing his aunt, he wants to leave the town, but he believes in Oyashiro-sama's curse.
お社様は村を捨てて逃げ出そうとすると
To which Reina puts in her 2 cents on the experience as well.
ひたひたとずっと足音がついてきて、夜は枕元にまで立たれて見下ろされてる経験、誰かが遠くからじっと伺ってる。
When the police approach Satoshi, Shion makes up an alibi to save him, which gets her discovered by her family. Angered at her recent behavior in fleeing school, they demand a show of responsibility. So because her family has ties to the town's creepy religion and history of torture, they force her to use a torture device to pull out 3 of her fingernails, 1 for each sin to forgive. Which is a personally cringy moment for me. I mean, I can handle my gore just fine, but it's the little things sometimes, you know, like the eye gouging or cutting the Achilles tendon or anything to do with skin. Ugh. Some of you might know what I mean. In addition to the moment, the religion in the show is a wonderfully off-putting component. In the West, we're more familiar with strange, culty, fundamentalist sects of Christianity, and it's used in a lot of stories. This, however, I'm guessing is connected to Shintoism, the main religion of Japan. Either way, this religion worships a mysterious god that is easily angered and involves curses, torture, sacrifices, and demons. Imagine having a group of people collectively believing in something that involves restricting your options and bringing harm to our characters. Now, some of you might argue that it's most religions, but I'm just pointing out this is the horror version extreme. And that uncomfortable pit you get in your stomach for something like this is delightfully suspenseful. One reason she follows through the procedure is because her family hates Satoshi's family, who were advocates for the dam years ago, and she assumed ripping off her nails would protect them. However, he disappears shortly after anyway. Confused, she's later told that the 3 forgivenesses were for her uncle, bodyguard, and herself. This leads to her to accuse her family for Satoshi's disappearance, but there is no proof, and she tries to believe that maybe they didn't. You know, it's almost like this family could use some communication. 1 year later, we enter the content of Chapter 2. But instead of her saving Keiichi, we see Keiichi save her. Not sure if this is a matter of her remembering things differently or just a continuity issue, but whatevs. She later meets Takano, before this. She's been researching the dark history of the town, which ought to make Oyashiro really mad. Shion is intrigued, connecting it to the secretive nature of her family, and when she overhears a vaguely ominous conversation between Mion and her granny, she zaps them both with a taser. Which, where did she get that, you might ask? Well, what do you think they teach in that all-girls school, And she takes them both to the family underground torture chamber under the estate, because of course any wealthy family needs one of those. She imprisons Mion, who insists that she knows nothing about Satoshi's disappearance. When she tries to question her granny, she finds the taser had accidentally killed her. Furious that she couldn't get answers or make the woman she believed killed her love suffer, she lashes out. Which begins Shion's many scary faces. Seriously, damn, the art style of the show can be pretty goofy looking, and not very impressive, but it clearly shines when our characters are going nuts. The exaggerated expressions convey the madness beautifully. I'm not even sure if it can be matched in any live action. I mean, I know the live action films tried, but yeah. She also starts experiencing symptoms of the curse, including hearing footsteps and feeling like she's being followed and watched, which she initially believes is Satoshi's ghost or presence after being spirited away. It's a little confusing, but she soon suspects it might be someone or something else. She then kidnaps another family elder, the village leader, Kimiyoshi, but does mention that the families have used the news of the curse as leverage for pulling their political gains, but believes the family didn't do anything to Satoshi. Yeah, or just say nothing. Dum-dum. The next day, she quite arbitrarily starts suspecting Rika. I mean, yes, her family is the 3rd family in power in town, but since they are deceased curse victims from a previous cotton drifting festival, and the fact that she's so young, there's no reason to accuse her of knowing anything. Yeah, admittingly though, Rika, with her innocent-sounding voice, does seem to imply that she knows more than she lets on. In fact, later that night, she comes to Shion's home asking for soy sauce, only to assault her with some kind of spray and a syringe. But when Shion gets the upper hand, Rika completely changes her demeanor.
ねんだけど、あんたの誘いは断るわ。この拷問狂。
This is an iconic scene of the series. Have I mentioned little girls being creepy in horror? Well, what if that little girl knows so much, and is not who she seems to be, and is capable of killing herself instead of undergoing torture? Hardcore. Sadako calls shortly after asking for Rika because, they live together, two orphans with no guardians. Seriously, this fucking town with their regulations. Shion takes the opportunity to realize, oh yeah, I hate Sadako. I beat her up once. So she baits her over. And this leads to a scene that is actually particularly hard to watch. Mion listens helplessly from her cage as Shion tortures Sadako with stabbing. Of course, she expresses her anger by telling her that she has to repent for her sins, hurting her brother by leaning on him too much and driving him away. Sadako, of course, cries, but then she says that she has faith her brother will return, and she'll show him how much she's grown. Despite the touching moment, Shion is not pleased and ends it. She thinks she succeeded in defeating all those involved in Satoshi's plight, only to remember his final words.
こんな私をサトシ君は絶対迎えになんか来ない。こんな私はなんだ、私自分でも知ってたんじゃないか。こんな私はもうとっくに鬼だったんだって。
And then we lead to the ending of Chapter 2, where Keiichi and Reina have caught up to her and have courted her in her house. At this point, she's given up. Feeling like she's become a monster, unable to control her life or her emotions, she spares Keiichi because she knows Mion had a crush on him once, which reminds her of her love for Satoshi. As for Mion, she swaps clothes with her and threatens to zap her over a deep well, which is supposedly used to hide bodies. She assumes Satoshi might be down there too. Then why doesn't she check? It's only now Mion tries to explain to her that after the fingernail incident, Granny had forgiven her and accepted her love to Satoshi. So it wasn't the family that got rid of him.
だってそれなら私が殺したのは仇じゃないってことに。
Great fucking timing. It's almost like you guys should have used communication. It's hard to believe what's true or not anymore. She makes a decision.
もしあんたが無実なら、あんたは天国に行ってサトシ君に会えるね。
So when Keiji found that Mion was found dead down at the well, Shion was found dead fallen from a window, he wonders who stabbed him that night. Well, it was a classic case of twin swap. Shion dressed as Mion, stabbed Keiichi because she's insane now with the curse symptoms at their most intense, and when she tries to sneak back into her room after the stabbing, she slips and falls, giving her a final moment to reflect and apologize for everything she's done, wrapping up her tragic story before... But then why Keiichi saw one of the sisters come from under the bed after both were dead could mean a hallucination, maybe. Well, since Keiichi was seeing and hearing things in Chapter 1 and Shion did in Chapter 5, it is possible. Now, when it comes to assessing horror, I feel like this is where we need a breakdown. Shion's story is one of tragedy. I'm glad that the show took the most episodes to tell her story because it needed the build-up to her misdeeds. She starts off as a sweet girl who's in love and who's shunned by her family. After being ostracized by them, put through some questionable practices, kept vague about intentions, and even if they meant well, Shion is on the edge to begin with, before one thing led to another and a series of actions she didn't mean to happen. By the end, she is what she feared, a demon, a monster that no one can love or forgive. She's the victim and master of her own hell, which I think is a different kind of horror experience that I really appreciated. And despite all that, I do have to mention, though, that when it comes to the actual plot, and the reason I had to summarize a lot of it is because some parts don't flow quite as well, and I can only theorize that it's because they're crunching too much narrative from trying to adapt the visual novels. So if you want a more fluid narrative, I haven't finished playing all of them, but you may want to give them a try. Wow. So we covered a lot today. So let's recap the scares before we wrap up this evening's episode. Parallel yet different details. Like seeing the punishment game, innocent yet again. It's fascinating seeing these chapters rebooted and seeing details play out in different ways, and the fact that you can't see innocent things as innocent anymore. Shion's phone calls, cryptic, vague, and always manipulating, and that laughter. Under the bed. You don't see it coming, the bloody psycho face and a hammer and nails are shocking. Maybe better for a night scene, however. Religion. I don't mean to make religion sound bad, but when it comes to a demonic, ritualistic history, it feels like its own entity, like a dense air surrounding our characters. Shion's reactions and faces. Note on how to make these animated expressions live action, because the art style works here beautifully. The Well. A secret stash for bodies, never seen, but that dark pit represents the dread. Infectious curse. Can't trust anyone, can't tell anyone, or you hurt them as well. Either way, you lose. Rika's surprise attack. Unexpected and deepens the what the hell mystery, as well as just being an iconic, shocking image. Family trust. Seriously, communication. Shion's tragedy. Slow buildup of anger and sadness that wraps up well in horror. And the return of the shaky cam, music, zooms, pans, and slanted angles. Well, that's enough crying in the When They Cry. So join me next time in my third and final part of my review for Higurashi no Naro Karo Kihi.